I call to order this meeting of the Stow-Munroe Falls City Schools Board of Education, Tuesday, October 14th, 2025 at 6 p.m. Roll call, please.
East Jenkins,
Here.
Merlady,
Here.
Sheehan,
Here.
Sudonik, Wind,
Here. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I do have a point of order before Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to move item number 4, the public comments section, to the end of the meeting, to 8C.
So there's a motion to move 4 to where?
Well, I don't need to make a motion, but if you want me to make a motion, I will make a motion that we move item number 4, which is the public comment section, to the end of the meeting, which would be 8C.
Any second?
Second.
Do we have discussion of moving the item?
Yeah, no, just like to have the opportunity to have the public be able to speak after the meeting, not right before the meeting. Or towards the end of the meeting, not at the beginning of the meeting.
Now, don't we do that in the other meeting?
Yes, in our meeting next week, we'll have the 2 comment sections.
And this is the meeting where there's only one comment
This is the meeting where we
session?
typically only have 1 comment section.
Right.
And in part at the beginning, so that anyone who wants to make a public comment doesn't have to sit for a couple of hours, potentially waiting to make that comment. So I prefer them at the beginning.
No, I'll let the community make that decision whether they want to sit or not. I think I'll give them an opportunity to speak after hearing the meeting.
I just thought it was supposed to be so they could give us their comments before on the items that are on the agenda, so that we know what they think before we vote instead of after we're done.
There's some value to that, but based on what we're going to be talking about, they may be able to do both by having this at the end of the meeting.
It would be over, but I mean, at that point, the comments are just comments.
There's
True.
nothing that we can discuss at that point. If we get comments at the beginning, we can consider them in our discussions.
True. I said, it's just a motion that I made. I've heard from folks that said they'd like the opportunity at a work session meeting to be able to comment at the end rather than in the beginning.
Yeah. And I've heard from folks who prefer this format so that they don't have to stay for hours. So, are we ready for a roll call?
yeah, East Jenkins,
Aye.
Merlady,
Nay.
Sheehan,
Yes.
Wind,
No.
motion fails.
Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everything we do is designed to provide a future-ready, student-centered learning experience for every single child. Our strategic plan for 2021 through 2026 will help us accomplish this goal by considering every facet of a student's learning experience, from curriculum to infrastructure to wellness and everything in between. As members of the Board of Education, we serve as trustees. Therefore, this is a business meeting being conducted in public, not a public meeting. We are grateful to serve an engaged community and therefore encourage and respect input from citizens. We expect that everyone present will behave in a manner consistent with the behavior we expect of our students. We reserve the right to have those who do not comply removed from our meeting. Next agenda item, comments from the audience. At this time, we welcome any comments and concerns citizens wish to bring before the Board of Education. All comments must be directed to the entire board and be no longer than 3 minutes. We will listen to and consider your remarks, but there will be no conversation aside from clarifying questions. If you are seeking a direct response or further information, we ask that you submit your request in writing. Please begin your remarks with your first and last name.
My name is Taylor McCauley. I am someone who proudly helped organize the Charlie Kirk Vigil alongside Mike. For those of you who didn't attend, you missed out. You missed an opportunity for our community to come together and honor a faith-based family man. You missed out on prayers from well-respected local pastors, honoring our country, and if anything could have resonated with you on that night, it would have been the denouncing of political violence. But sadly, that's not the case for some of you. When interviewed by the Akron Beacon, I told them that my Facebook event alone had over 300 responses to attend. What I didn't tell them is that it also had almost 900 interests, and I'm happy to say that we had about 1,200 people that came out and attended that night in Stow. This topic matters because so many in Stow hold the same values as Charlie Kirk, and it's your job as board members to reflect us all. He gave the biggest mic to those who disagreed, something some of you on this board seem to fail in doing. I'm done watching you bully this man. I'm done watching you silence this man. He is your equal. And since you can't silence me at this moment, I'm going to raise some issues I have. Certain board members and her colleagues are part of and being endorsed by groups here in Stow that do not reflect our community. Hanging banners over Route 8, insulting federal law enforcement. These groups are providing minors access to phone numbers and websites to speak about their sexuality behind their parents' backs. Organizing events for men in drag to perform in our parks in front of our children when you know these are shows reserved for adult venues. You've taken it upon yourselves to claim certain spirit wear makes a child look racist. Some of us see these banners and think of our fathers and brothers fighting every day to keep our country safe. Some parents teach their children to embrace the body they were born in as a gift from God, guiding them through any challenges they face as their young, impressionable minds develop. Should I stop my children from wearing eye black to a football game? Should I be fearful you're going to pull them into another political stunt? Our community wants fiscal responsibility. We want achieving academics. You should be embarrassed that more parents are moving their kids to other districts or homeschooling. Your Board of Elections page is riddled with extreme ideology and you stating that you hope this message gets to our kids. These are not your kids. And if you're going to send any message to our kids, it should be about healthy eating habits, getting outside, limiting access to screens, and working hard in school. Anything regarding sexuality, gender, or race geared towards minors is wildly inappropriate. You do not have my vote. Your colleagues who are part of these groups do not have my vote. You all are inappropriate, and I pray Stow sees this as we go to the polls. Thank you.
Jennifer Sire. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am a proud Stow resident, alumna, and parent to a graduate and 2 current students. But pride in our district hasn't protected my one child from years of struggle or a family from being dismissed and invalidated. Starting in 3rd grade, my child was deemed different and excluded by peers. I raised concerns and was told, "We're sorry that happened." In 4th grade, my child began avoiding writing tasks. I was told their test scores are fine. In 5th grade, they hid from the bus and asked if they were normal. I was told they're fine here. In 6th grade, missing assignments increased. I was told they're lazy and need to try harder. In 7th grade, feeling broken, they began struggling to get to school. I was told there's nothing we can do, they're not here. In 8th grade, they were self-harming. I was told this is mental health, not our role. For 6 years, I asked for help. My concerns minimized, my parenting questioned. I watched my joyful child become withdrawn and disconnected from peers, just trying to survive. Last year, we finally received answers that made sense. A high IQ with challenges in communication, social emotional skills, executive functioning, and possible learning differences. But the accumulated effect of inaction by the district landed at the high school. So in 9th grade, when they continued the same pattern of struggles, I brought all this to the school. The response, we will try to help, but our test results show they are learning and meeting our standards. The impact of years in survival mode is profound. With an emphasis on attendance this year, I'm being asked, how can we help you get them to school without consideration that school is a place that causes distress? My child knows education matters. They don't need another specialist or diagnosis. At the core isn't their attendance. They need to feel safe when in school. They need a district that recognizes twice exceptionality and threat survival response, that acknowledges their incongruent skills and affirms their distinct brain. My child is lost in a system that prioritizes data over individuality, policy over the whole child. Using your influence, how will you ensure our schools are a place where my child feels safe? Dr. Ross Green said, kids do well if they can. This isn't about motivation or parenting, nor about one teacher or school. It's about a district that fell short in seeing my whole child and what was going on beyond their test scores. I'm asking Stowe schools to do better, educate your staff, stop the harm, listen, be curious and creative, be proactive. Help this child go from surviving to thriving to reach their full potential, because no child, mine or anyone else's, should be lost in our schools. Thank you.
My name is Marta Simpkins, and I'll make this really short and sweet. I was looking at the agenda, and I see we're hiring a new company to write checks. And I'm curious, does that mean we are getting rid of the 2 employees we have that are in accounts payable and responsible for those kind of things? Or I'm curious as to why we keep on needing to have new companies coming in and new programs and things that are all geared towards the employees that we already are paying. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Jones. The first thing I'd like to talk about, my kids are 4 and 2, so one of them will be in your school district in the next year or 2. And some things are concerning, especially with Castle. That's a big thing for me. It started out as something for social and emotional learning, and that's a positive thing in theory. However, in practice, it shifts schools away from academics and into emotional and ideological territory that doesn't belong in the classrooms. Castle began as a program to help students manage emotions, but in its 2020 framework, Transformative SEL, which is part of the Satchel Pulse, which we spent $30,000 on here, now pushes social justice and equity activism. That's a shift from teaching skills to shaping beliefs. Schools should teach kids how to think, not what to think. Castle isn't teaching kindness, it's teaching a worldview. SEL takes up value on instructional time. Since the SEL became a major focus after 2020, reading and math scores have plummeted nationwide. Kids need structure, not therapy sessions disguised as education. When students focus on feelings over fundamentals, academics suffer. SEL surveys and journals collect emotional data on children, often without parental consent. That is not okay. These records can be biased and permanent. Emotional and moral guidance should come from families, not curriculum vendors. Districts spend millions on SEL training and consultations with no results. It's a costly distraction from true learning. Let's return to academics, reading, writing, math, civics, and leave emotional and moral development to the families in our communities. Our kids deserve education, not experimentation. A couple other things. One of the things, cell phone reimbursement, $29,000 was spent for that for administrators. However, those same administrators can enjoy tax breaks on those cell phones just like I do as a tattoo artist. If you use your phone, you can get tax breaks for it. That $30,000 could be spent otherwise on education. Also, a weekend retreat, $26,000 for a weekend retreat for administrators. What happened to going to a bowling alley? And with the eye black situation, why were 2 young girls painted as racist in our community for supporting their football team. That is a tradition that has gone on a very long time. And that's a concern of mine because my children are mixed race. Their mother is black. And as far as Charlie Kirk, this is the last thing I'm going to end on. Well, one other thing. I just feel that the student rep should be elected instead of appointed that's on your board. That's just a thought and an idea. But I want to get on the Charlie Kirk situation because your school district had not only a teacher, but also a board member make comments on social media concerning the death of Charlie Kirk, and in a way to validate it.
My name is Jerry Bedio. I wasn't able to attend the last meeting that the school board had here, but after looking at the video on YouTube, I was totally appalled by each and every one of you board members. You had to pick on a certain board member, which is unethical. And besides that, the board president didn't even use her gavel to silence the assistant president, where she rattled on and just about told Mr. Sheehan to go to you know where. It's unethical that you ladies, I'm using that very liberally, cannot hold your tongue and treat persons with respect. This is not what I expect of school board members, nor of anyone else in this school system. And I hope the electors take toll of what you did.
Hi, my name is Bella Weber. I went to Stowe my freshman through junior year and moved to Woodridge my senior year for a few reasons, sports being one, and what this school was turning into. I had a few great teachers and a lot of teachers who would target me because of who my mom was. I was always scared to speak at meetings, even attend meetings, because I was scared I would get targeted. Now I'm in college and I frankly don't care what any of you think of me, but I was once suspended for no reason, and the teacher who suspended me did not like my mom. They would frankly have feuds on Facebook. My suspension went under investigation and they found I did nothing wrong, and they took it off of my record. I was facing a lot of stupid high school drama like any other student. I confided in school counselors and I was told I needed therapy, and I was depressed and full of anxiety when that wasn't the case. I was just someone who was in drama and struggled. About the teachers, no teacher, when you're in school, you're there to learn about math, English, writing, social studies, anything like that. You're not supposed to know what a teacher's political views are, ever. Your student is there to learn, and when I have kids one day, they will not be going to Stowe as long as the board looks like this. So, thank you.
John Sigmund. In regards to this board tonight, I would like to point out one particular board member. This board member is the only one who has done what it takes to benefit the kids and this school system. I'm talking about Mike Sheehan. Mike, thank you so much for all you've done. Mike has asked the tough questions to get to the answers for all the overspending, the misaligned policies that this board is responsible for. Mike has been outnumbered and ganged up on 6-1 by this non-inclusive board. We need the voters to get out and vote for new good leaders this November. This is our last chance to save our schools. I'm a lifetime City of Stow resident and an alumni of Stow High School. The teachers from my day would have been angry as hell at what goes on in this school today. Please get out and vote this November, and let's make Stow schools great again.
Okay, seeing no for the superintendent's recommendations, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Dr. Gould?
Good evening. I would like to recommend the following personnel recommendations.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. It's not so much about these recommendations, but can you give a update as to when the spring coaches approval is going to happen? Or the spring coaches recommendations are going to happen?
Mr. Sheehan, we're discussing these personnel recommendations during this item.
Well, we're talking about recommendations. I'm asking the superintendent about recommendations.
Mr. Love is going to share about spring coaches.
Yes, as far as some of our spring coaches have already been recommended, and we're just continuing to roll through it. So there's not a date of when, we'll have all of them going. Some of them have already been approved.
Now, are they aware of this? Because I do know that spring coaches start their preseason training. Do they know? Do the coaches know who has been approved and who hasn't?
Yes.
They
Yeah.
do know, okay, because there is also the access to the 300 accounts and things like that. So technically, if a spring coach is not approved, they wouldn't be able to do any preseason training or have access to their 300 account.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay. But there is communication with them whether they are or aren't.
Yes, there is.
Would this be something that could be at our October 20th meeting as far as the spring coach recommendation list? That's next Monday?
Yeah, we can definitely have a list of who's
Or
been
at least the
recommended.
ones that are approved at that time?
Sure. I don't know how we can share that, but we do have a list of who's been recommended already.
On the
I can
20th?
get that for you.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
East Jenkins,
Aye.
Merlady,
Aye.
Sheehan,
Aye.
Wind,
Aye. Our next item is Neola Policy Package A. It has already been through 2 readings, so tonight will be our vote on it. Do you have any information for us on this, Dr. Gould, or?
No, this is the last reading for those
Okay,
3 policies.
I just wanted to make sure. Any questions? Roll call, please.
East Jenkins,
Aye.
Merlady,
Aye.
Sheehan,
Aye.
Wind,
Aye. I'm sorry, did I forget to ask for a motion for that item?
I believe so.
Okay.
It just triggered.
Yeah, I just realized I moved a little too fast. Do I have a motion for that one?
So moved. Second.
Okay. Now we can do roll call.
East Jenkins,
Aye.
Merlady,
Aye.
Sheehan,
Aye.
Wind,
Aye. Okay, our next item is a presentation from the superintendent.
Yes, this evening we'd like to give an academic update in regards to strategic plan goals 1 and 2. I want to begin the presentation this evening by thanking all of the Stow-Munroe Fall staff and students for the hard work and emphasis that has been placed on our students in and out of our classroom. We are not just performing in the classroom, we are also excelling out of the classroom. We'd also like to thank our families for entrusting us with their prized possessions and working to partner with us to create productive citizens, not just in our community, but throughout the world. And now with that said, I'll move into our presentation for this evening. And our goal here is to share with the board and the public the wonderful work that is occurring in our schools and to provide information in regards to the school report card and the special education profile. We want to use these as key performance indicators for this evening. Presenting with me this evening will be Ms. Christy Pro, Assistant Superintendent, Director of Special Services, Aisha Collier, K-6 Curriculum Supervisor, and Julie Miller. At the beginning of each meeting, our board president reads our strategic plan vision, and I'd like to just have the opportunity for us to look at that vision again here on tonight and remind us that every decision that we make, every policy we uphold, and every program that we implement must be grounded in one central truth: our students are the heart of our work. With the district embarked on the strategic plan in 2021, we set forth a clear vision that would act as our roadmap. It was a plan that had action steps as well as where we wanted to go for 2026. We wanted the vision not to just be words on paper, but a promise to our families and to everyone in our community to hear our shared expectations and how we plan to achieve those things that were in the strategic plan. When we take a look at Goal 1 and 2, which we will be sharing here tonight, Goal 1 is about giving our students the tools and knowledge and skills that they need to achieve at their highest levels. And Goal 2 speaks to how we can create an environment where high expectations, respect, accountability, and excellence are not just words, but also practices. Together, these two goals capture both sides of our responsibility: what we provide for students in the classroom and how the leaders and educators organize ourselves to deliver excellence each and every day. As we begin to take a look at the traditional report card, we consider the traditional report card a lagging indicator because it is an indicator that happens at one particular time to capture information on a student. The traditional report card is derived of 6 components that make up the overall rating. Here you see the achievement component, which is 25% of the overall rating. It is how well students perform on the state tests if they meet proficiency. The progress component is 25%. It is how much growth students make compared to the prior years. And early literacy, which is 12.5%, is how well students are, or schools are helping young learners become proficient readers. Gap closing is 12.5%. It is how well schools are closing gaps for our subgroups. And graduation, the percentage of students graduating within 4 and 5 years. And a new component that has been calculated over 2 years, but showing up the first time on this particular report card is our college career, workforce, and military readiness component. And it is what our students are doing after they leave high school. All of these components add up to 100% to give us an overall rating. Our overall rating for this school year is 4 stars. And if you look at the report card, it tells you right at the top that it exceeds state standards. Our overall rating is a way for us to give families a way to see how the district is performing across all the key areas that I've just outlined in the previous slide. Each of these components receives its own star rating. And then the stars are averaged together to determine the school's overall rating. These ratings also occur across all 9 of our schools in the district. The school report card also provides families with information regarding the district detail information, gifted, and also financial information. So that we have an understanding of exactly what we are seeing when we receive the school report card, here we have the understanding of the release cycle. You see the dates. The report card is always released at this particular time in September. However, this data lags from the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. This gives them an opportunity to finalize data such as state test scores and graduation rates and student progress measures. Where this 1 year lags is the annual checkup. It is called where the school report card is summarized, and so that we can see student outcomes. These data points come from the previous year. And so those data points are on graduation verification and our subgroups. So the results that we are reviewing today represent the teaching and learning that occurred in the previous year, not the current year. This means we've already started to implement our strategies and what we're seeing, and we will address these matters in real time. So the report card that was released on September of 25 is the 24-25 report card, and the school year data that is being reviewed is from the 23-24 school year. Because the district report card takes a look at district details, here I'm sharing this evening in regards to our certified staff, our classified staff, and our administrators. This is a district detail that you can also see on the report card. It shows that our teacher staffing ratios, here you can see in 2023, the top burgundy one is for certified staff, the red is for tutors that we've had in our building, the gold is for classified staff, and the gray is for administrators. Based on current information in regards to how our staff ratio is from a 19-to-1 type of ratio, we fall in line with districts that are comparable to us based on our current enrollment. Here you have a slide that shares the district enrollment numbers. It is important to note that our district made an important change in the spring of 2024. We changed our open enrollment policy. The district moved from open enrollment with all schools and then went to neighboring school districts. While we have seen a decline and we are working to look at our enrollment process, we are also looking at how we market the district, making sure that we are able to tell our story and so that people understand the Bulldog story. On the in the graphic next to it is the average years of service of staff in each of our schools that can also be found in district details. Here you have the district overall star reportings for the last 3 years, because in school year 2021, there was not, this is when the star ratings came into play. Prior to that, schools were giving grades, A through F, and then they moved into what we call a star rating type of system. Stow-Munroe Falls has averaged between 4 and 4.5, meaning that we have consistently exceeded the state standards on the report card. Here is where you can find all of the information that I've shared. If you go to the actual school report card, you can actually click District at a Glance and go to any of those areas that I've shared. As I stated before, it gives district details, it gives each individual rating for each component area, as well as you can see also financial data for the district also. In the financial data, it talks about what monies are spent in the classroom, per pupil expenditures, and the sources for our funding. Again, our purpose of the star rating, Stow-Munroe Fall continues to exceed state standards in the overall rating. The Ohio School Report Card uses 1 to 5-star rating system to give parents and staff and community a clear snapshot of how schools and districts are performing. Unlike previously with the letter grades, the STAR system is designed to really focus in on growth and continuous improvement. And the overall rating combines the 5 component ratings using the state-defined formula of those ratings. And the overall rating reflects a moment in time, and this is why we call it a lagging indicator. Thinking of the overall rating as a cover story, but the real story is behind each of the components. And now we will share each of those components and where we are on each of the 6 measures of the report card, as well as talk about our action steps that we've implemented and where we're going in regards to our next strategic plan for 2031. And now Julie Miller will now take us through the achievement process.
You want to click? That's fine. So you can see this is the achievement component of the report card. Overall, our district earned 4. Performance index is the benchmark score against which all schools and districts are measured. Schools and districts are calculated separately, so this is the district score you'll see. The score is determined by identifying the top 2% of performance index scores statewide for the year, and then they find the average of those top 2% schools, and that's the max score that we're rated against.
As Dr. Gould mentioned, 25% of the report card is the achievement component. There are no subcategories in the achievement component. It represents 100% of that particular achievement component, which is the performance index. Stow-Munroe Falls City School District's performance index was a 91.6. The maximum score was 109.8. Our performance index percentage was 83.4%. The performance index measures the test results of every student, not just those who score proficient or higher, but every student that takes the test. Schools and districts receive points on the index for every student, and the higher the performance level on the state test, the more points are awarded to those particular categories to increase the performance index scores. Each year, the maximum possible points is determined by the average of the highest 2 performance index scores in the state, as Julie mentioned. So that denominator that we look at consistently can change over time based on how other school districts are performing across the state of Ohio. You're fine. All right, so to dig into some of our data, our K-4 state test result trends for 3rd grade ELA, 3rd grade math, 4th grade ELA, and 4th grade math are in this graphic. As you look at this slide, you can see the last 4 years of the Ohio State testing data for 3rd and 4th grade students. The maroon shows that SMF achievement scores, the gray shows the state average. We have maintained consistency in 3rd grade math, and we are up to 76% in achievement due to staff implementing our new math curriculum. The same is true for our upward trend in 4th grade math, being around 82%. 3rd grade ELA, we have consistently scored well above the state average. In 4th grade ELA, we have consistently scored in the 70s. When we review the achievement data, we look for growth across cohorts. That means kids moving from year to year. A kid that tests in 3rd grade ELA, how do they perform in 4th grade ELA? The same is true as we compare across years and looking at our yearly trends. As we move into the next slide for Lakeview's test data, you'll see the slide shows 5th and 6th grade. For the last 4 years, again, the maroon shows SMF achievement scores, and the gray shows the state average in that subject and grade. We have consistently scored above 70% in the area of 5th grade ELA.
Again, you can see, this is Kimpton, you can see that our scores for the last 4 years are in maroon. We've shown an upward trend over the last 4 years in our achievement data at Kimpton. I would like to point out that in 8th grade, our students split into 2 math classes. Oh, you got it, okay. In 8th grade, our students split into 2 math classes. Our accelerated math students take Algebra 1, so they take the Algebra 1 state test. And then the percentage you see for 8th grade math drops from the 7th grade score. To demonstrate that, the 55% on Math 8 drops from the 7th grade score the year before from a 67%, and that's because the students move into Algebra 1, and those students are taken out. They don't take the Math 8 test. That's why you see the drop in the Math 8 test. But our Algebra 1 students that take it in 8th grade are passing at a 94% rate. So we're happy about the passage rate increasing, though. From last year for 8th grade, we went up from 45% passing in Math 8 to 55% passing in Math 8. So we are still making growth with that cohort of students. So this shows the high school. These are the state test scores from the high school. And again, we see that upward trend in achievement over the last 4 years. The geometry score, you'll see, is broken down by grade level. So that 56% passage rate, that's for the 10th graders that are taking geometry. The 90% is for just our freshmen. So once they accelerate, our freshmen taking geometry are then passing at a, I'm looking for a 90% rate. And then our kids that run that typical path from Math 8 to Algebra 1 to geometry in 10th grade are passing at a 56% rate. So again, we want achievement for all, and we're breaking out the numbers to make sure we're meeting all kids what they need. So action steps that we're taking to address achievement. Alignment of the school improvement process for our teacher-based teams, our building leadership teams, and our district leadership teams. We continue to refine core instruction to meet the needs of all students to see consistent growth in tested areas. And we're employing research-based instructional materials and strategies that result in growth and achievement for our students. So those are the conversations that we're having during those meetings at the district level, at the building level, and with each teacher team.
So looking ahead, what are some things that we are trying to accomplish? Our goal is to reach 80% achievement in all tested courses and continue to evaluate research-based instructional strategies that result in growth and achievement for all of our students. And we're going to move into the progress component of the report card. Just as Dr. Gould mentioned, the progress report in terms of the calculations of the state report card, it's also represents 25%. So when you look at achievement and progress together, those two components represent 50% of our state report card. So just a little bit of progress. The progress component measures the amount of growth made by groups of students compared to students like them across the state. The overall value-added composite combines growth across all subjects and grades at the school or district for the past 3 years. So in this measure, we had 3 stars. And so what does that look like in terms of calculations? So many times we hear, we did really good last year. Why does it not show in our progress? Progress is like a grade point average. It's the GPA. The more that you take classes and get good grades, the more your GPA goes up. We want to ensure consistency with our student growth and our effect size. So the better we do and the more consistent we are each year from year to year, the higher our progress scores will go up. The calculation is 3 years worth of data. The last data point is rated at 50%, and the other 2 years are rated 25%. So last year's progress is rated 50%, and then the previous 2 years are calculated as 25%, 25%.
So this then shows you what she was just explaining of where we're at on this report card. So this measure shows how well students are making a year's worth of growth in a year's time. So students with disabilities and students in the lowest 20% of achievement aren't calculated in this. And gifted progress will be used as a part of the gifted indicator in the gap closing. You'll see that. If you look at the color coding, the green shows that we're making progress at the statewide expectation. The blue and dark blue show that there is moderate to significant evidence of progress that exceeds. So the areas in orange and red are areas that we are monitoring progress in those areas. So the action steps to address that were, again, refining instructional practices, especially in the red and the orange areas, providing professional development on differentiation for all learners, using structured teacher-based team agendas and coaching cycles for our teachers, and then monitoring student trend data throughout the year. So we don't just look at it once, we're monitoring certain data points throughout the year.
So what are we doing looking ahead to support those areas? We're going to ensure all tested courses meet or exceed statewide progress expectation, demonstrating at least a year's growth annually. And we're going to review student projections versus actual data for any courses not meeting growth expectations and adjust as needed.
Before we move forward, Mr. Sheehan has a question.
Julie, can you go back to the chart? Yeah, that where. I have a lot of questions, but this chart came up, so I'm going to ask this one now. On that 5th grade, on the English, language, arts, science, and all tests, can you explain that or why we are at that? We don't seem to be doing very well in those 3 areas.
We have made progress, and we've kind of have some ebbs and flows with our 5th grade ELA in terms of us kind of going up and going down. Last year, we did have a new schedule, and we had some different factors. A couple of years ago, we did introduce a new English language arts curriculum, and we've seen, normally when you introduce a new curriculum, your scores kind of take a drop for a little bit, and then they kind of go back up. So we've been having some ebbs and flows with that, and we looked at that, so the way we're delivering that instruction, and we made some adjustments for this year. And in terms of science, we're looking to maximize our schedule for science. We have a very good curriculum in place for science, and teachers are implementing that. But right now, with our schedule being so full and all of the state mandates around reading instruction, what has happened is we're not teaching science for a full year currently at Lakeview. We're teaching it half of the year in 6th grade and about 2.5 quarters for 5th grade. So we are looking to make some adjustments for next year to make sure that that is taught year round. And looking at our scores, for us to only be teaching it around 2.5 quarters, we're still at the state average. So if we just make that adjustment in our instruction, I'm pretty sure we'll be well above the state average.
You made a comment there, and I've heard this before, that we're not able to get and do what we need to do because of state mandates. That just seems like an oxymoron. That the state is forcing us to do so much with the kids in the classroom that we can't get to everything that the kids need to get in the classroom. And again, I would like to try to understand that.
So the state has implemented for all staff, regardless of if they teach ELA or not, to reading, professional development that all of us had to participate in, even including myself. And so with that came a curriculum approval list. We had to select curriculum that met those requirements. And so that's what the board has adopted and put in place. With that is also some other mandates in regards to students who are not meeting the expected growth that they should have. They are placed on what we call a reading intervention plan. And then there's something in place to assist those students during the school day. So those were mandates that had to take place within the school schedule. And so as Ms. Collier has said, with a focus in on making sure students understand the science of reading, some things had to be adjusted in the schedule. And so we've looked at how our curriculum folds out and how it's paced out in order for staff to implement that. And so we've made those adjustments based on their recommendations, not the state.
Thank you. But again, it just seems like, are we just just asking too much of these kids based on what we're trying to teach them to the point where they're you just not, they shut down. And then maybe that could be why we have maybe the issues as far as the test. Again, I've heard that. It seems like that kids seem overburdened. And again, this could just be the kids' perspective, but that there's just way too much that we're putting on these kids' plate. And it seems like we're putting it on the state. The state says we have to do this. The state says we have to do this. Of just looking at how can we get the things that they need to get, but not put them in a situation where they're just overwhelmed.
Yes, I wouldn't say that the staff would disagree with you on those particular things, but as the state mandates certain things, you know, we try to make it fit what it looks like in Stow, and so that's why we've gone back and revised and spoken with the teachers to kind of really help us to pace out what that needs to look like in real time. And try to do what's best for our students. As I said before, the report card is a lagging indicator. It's that one point in time. Students take a test in March, and whatever they do on that day, that's it. And so that's why we look deeper into exactly what is happening with the data, because we can see actual growth that is happening with our students and not just that one moment that we take that test in March. So we really don't like to have a report card really identify who we are, because we know that Stow is much greater than what we're seeing here. But this is how the state looks at every school district, and this is how they fund and do all of those things. So we have to do what we have to do to meet those mandates.
Okay, the other one on the 7-8 math, can you kind of address that issue there?
Sure, I've already identified that Math 8, like our math along the way needs attention. I mean, remember, this is a year's worth of growth in a year's time for all students. So if a gifted student is expected to grow a certain number and they're expected to get a certain score on the state test, they need to meet that score just as much as the student that we're trying to get who has never passed a state test, and we're trying to grow them and fill some gaps for them. We're really trying to meet needs of all students in both ends of the spectrum. And we've been trying various things to address that, and different groupings of students and different professional development. But yes, we know that we're working on Math 8 for sure. Math 7 and Math 8.
The last one, just on this one
May
here.
I add on to that? The growth thing has really been a struggle for my kids for sure. I mean, not to brag too much, but when you get the highest score on the test, there's really nowhere to go. So, you know, and then it looks bad when you look at the report that comes from the state that says they didn't make any growth. Well, you know, the test is the problem, really.
And we are looking at that for all of our kids, our highest level learners down to our lowest level learners, and trying to, within a classroom, meet everybody's needs the best that we can.
And just the last one that I saw when I was looking at this, that American government at the high school, what would cause that to be?
Well, the American government, the students are making more progress. There's significant evidence of more progress than expected. The American history is in red. That one we...
Yeah, that was the American history,
okay.
sorry.
That's okay. That one we are, 2 years ago, we're reevaluating, and I remember this is 3 years worth of data, so it's 50% last year and then 25 and 25 the previous 2 years, so it's really 3 years averaged together. So we did look at the standards of what they were taught and when they were taught. Every year at this time, the state, when they release all of the test data, we take all of that and we create an item analysis by item. So we create a spreadsheet, and teachers in their teacher-based teams evaluate all of that standards that they're covering and how students are doing on each.
Thank you.
I have another question about the testing. When we talk about the state tests in March and we look at these scores, these are tests that our students took in March of 24, correct? Not this past March.
Correct, because they're a year behind, but this particular measure that we're looking at involves 3 data points, the current year and the 2 previous years. So those are all averaged together. to see if we're actually seeing trends within each of those components that we're looking at.
So when you say current year, that would be 24 and then
Yes.
23 and 22 before
yes.
that. Okay, I wanted to make sure that I understood how much of a lag there
Yeah.
was there. Thank
So
you.
basically, if you were looking at these students here in 4th grade, those students now are actually in 6th grade.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Sorry. All right. Oh, shoot.
All right, we're going to dive into the gifted component of our state report card. So the gifted component of our state report card includes 3 elements: the gifted performance index, the gifted progress, and the gifted identification and services. Points are awarded separately per each of those subsets. They contribute 5 points to the gap closing component rating when they are met and 0 when they are not met. So some things to note about our gifted report card indicator. So with the gifted performance index score, we scored sorry, I'm looking at my notes. We scored a 96.1, and we were 1 point off from actually meeting our goal of 97.5. So that could be one student being identified and counting towards that gifted performance index score. Our gifted progress score, we had a goal of 3. We exceeded that goal by having 4 stars. So that means our gifted learners are growing, making a year's growth in a year's time. And then our gifted identification and services, we did not meet that goal, and I just want to kind of capture why. So right now, we service gifted students in grades 4 and up. We do not currently provide formal gifted services for 7th grade. When we look to provide those services, we have to do highly qualified professional development hours for teachers that are servicing those students, and we may have to look at scheduling and things that's more of a long-term down the road effect. So we are currently looking at those things to see how we can maximize services to support our students, because our gifted numbers are growing at the lower levels, and we want to make sure that we're supporting those students at the lower levels.
I'm sorry, can I ask you said 1 year of progress per year for the gifted students. I thought they were accelerated.
So when you look at the progress component, the base of that component is a kid growing, making a year's growth in a year's time. So that looks like, did I actually grow a year? So if I'm gifted and I'm already, to your point that you made earlier, if I'm 3 years above expected growth and then I'm not growing any additional, then that shows a negative effect size. So what I'm saying is currently our gifted learners in 4th grade and up across the district, they are making a year's growth in a year's time. So they are actually making at least 1 year of growth. Now, if we look at students with disabilities, they have more of a ceiling to reach in order to grow. So some kids that operate or learn at a lower level that may have disabilities, they may make 2 years of expected growth in 1 year's time because they have a larger margin of growth, which increases the effect size. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. It gets real wordy and nerdy. Sorry.
So based on what you're saying, so if you have a gifted person who's already at the top, has nowhere else to go, does that affect the overall numbers for the rest of the kids?
Yeah.
Can't we raise the top?
Yes. I think we can.
I mean, I just saw something, it was a 10-year-old kid that just graduated from junior college. And her dad just kept pushing her, you know? So, yeah, so what do we, yeah, because I do have questions on the fact that we have those 2 reds, so are our gifted students getting their money's worth? And so what's the plan to kind of address that?
So for our gifted performance index, that top one, the state will say our students, once they're identified gifted, If they take a state test and they score proficient, they actually, if they're gifted and they score advanced, it actually gives us advanced plus points.
Can I just interrupt you there on that
Yeah.
proficient?
Mhm.
I hope a gifted student is higher than a proficient, because it's my understanding
Yes.
proficient is 49%. Is that
And-
correct?
Oh, I don't know the actual percentage for that.
That is 49%, because that's what it said on the report card.
Yeah.
But my question on that, a little off topic here. When I went to school, 70 or 65 was an F. Are we still using that same kind of idea? So if somebody's at a 49% and that's considered proficient, am I still on the same scale? Like 95 to 100 was A and 49%, and I was going to ask this when we finish, but
Are
since
you
we're
asking a
finished-
question about the report card or like our grading scale?
Well, you mentioned, you used the word advanced and proficient, and
So
on my thing, proficient's 49%. That's certainly not gifted.
We would expect that our gifted students taking a state test are scoring accelerated or advanced. So what I'm saying is that's how we earn that gifted performance index score, is when they score where they should and we get the points that we are supposed to get for those students. So if we're not, and those are the numbers that we look at our strategies of what we're doing with our gifted population. Absolutely. Okay, so some action steps to address the gifted indicator. So Aisha mentioned providing the high quality professional development for teachers that are providing gifted services that address the current student needs. So yes, we take that data, and those are the conversations that our gifted service providers are having in terms of the PD that they get. And then we monitor the growth data for our gifted population and ensure they're achieving at expected levels.
Looking ahead, we want to expand gifted services to support all students that have been identified as gifted. We want to analyze our gifted service delivery model to evaluate our current practices and overall effectiveness of our gifted program to make changes.
Okay, so we've been through achievement and progress. We're at gap closing. So we're happy to report that we earned 5 stars in gap closing. So the next slide will give more information about the data that is used in that measure. So within this gap closing measure, it takes into account the following components. So they do English language arts achievement and growth, English language arts growth. So how well did the kids achieve, and then how are they doing on their growth? Math achievement and math growth. It counts graduation for student subgroups, English learner proficiency improvement indicator, chronic absenteeism improvement indicator, and then that gifted performance indicator that we saw before on the earlier screen.
So when you look at gap closing, you look at our subgroups, and we have several subgroups at the district level, but at each building has their own set of subgroups. What is a subgroup? A subgroup consists of at least 15 students to make it a subgroup. So in this slide, it highlights English language arts achievement as well as English language arts growth. And so in this particular slide, we met 8 out of 9 goals and in achievement for our subgroup populations in our school district. And in terms of progress, we met 4 out of 9 of those goals. When we look at our math achievement, again, we have achievement as well as growth, and we met 8 out of 9 of those goals for achievement and 5 out of 9 of those goals for progress in gap closing. And so what are the next steps?
So we analyze subgroup data to evaluate strength and core instruction. We collaborate through the teacher-based teams and the building leadership teams to identify effective practices that drive achievement. And we use common assessments to monitor mastery and adjust instruction throughout the year.
So looking ahead, what does that look like? We want to ensure that our instructional practices lead to achievement and growth for all of our student subgroups, and we want to assess resources to ensure they are effective, align, and support instructional goals. Which brings us to our early literacy measure. So early literacy measure is very complicated, so I'm going to take any questions you may have along the way. It is 12.5% of our report card, and early literacy is comprised of kindergarten through third grade data. The early literacy component examines the effectiveness of the reading and literacy supports provided to students in kindergarten through third grade. It is composed of 3 unrated measures that contribute to the overall rating. So our overall rating was 83.5%, and those 3 measures were proficiency in third grade reading, which on a later slide I'm going to break down for you, promotion to 4th grade, and improving K-3 literacy. So when you look at the proficiency in third grade reading and you look at the promotion to 4th grade, you will see that we had 74% of our students scoring proficient in third grade. And so what does that mean? What does that look like? That means that our students are hitting a 700 score, which is the baseline score to be considered proficient, or they hit the 50 sub score. And so there's 2 parts of the test. There's a composite score, and then there's like a raw and a scale score. And so the raw score is the 700, the sub score is the 50. So they either have to hit a 700 or a 50 to be promoted to 4th grade. The caveat from the state is that if a student does not hit those sub scores, a parent has the option to waive their retention to promote them to 4th grade. So I know sometimes it's, why do we have 74% of our students passing the Ohio State test? However, we are promoting 97.8%. Parents have a say in that 97.8%, and it's important that they do have a say in that. And so as a result, we promote those students, and they fill out a form that goes out to promote them to 4th grade. So that is the difference between the actual proficiency versus the promotion in 4th grade.
Question.
Yep.
So this chart here is telling us that 26% of our third graders cannot read. Am I reading that right?
That was about to be my question.
26% of our students did not meet the score to score proficient. It doesn't mean that they cannot read. It just means that they did not score proficient.
Okay, which I'm going to go back to this proficient again.
Okay.
That's 49%. Is
So-
that 49% out of 100? I mean, when I went to school, 100 was a perfect score. Are we still using those same kind of numbers?
No, because proficient, sometimes in the report card is used as student meeting the standard, and sometimes it is used as being proficient on the actual assessment. It's being used interchangeably.
Because
And who sets those scores and expectations as far as what is considered proficient and what is not?
The state sets those. So we get those numbers from the state. In this particular component, this talks about a minimum is considered, you have to get a 700 on the actual component in order to be considered proficient.
Can you
So-
give us an idea of what that 700 score, what kinds of skills that would represent? Because just because a kid isn't meeting that score doesn't mean they don't know how to read at all. Then what kinds of skills are expected to be proficient?
Sure. So when you look at third grade and you look at the Ohio State standards, it is the standards for third grade. So falling short of those standards doesn't necessarily mean that you can't read. It means that you're not necessarily operating at a third grade level. On the flip side, again, when you look at the proficiency in third grade reading, that is just proficiency against the Ohio State test. We have another vendor-approved assessment, which is NWEA MAP. And if students score a 192, that was the score last year, if they hit a 192, they were also promoted. So the promotion score shows that they are reading at a level where they can be promoted. So if you look at our diagram, that red dot right there signifies who was promoted and actually met the OST guidelines for the state, as well as the NWEA MAP guidelines. So that test is administered 3 times a year. We look at it in the winter and the spring, and then also we invite kids to summer school for 3rd grade, and we administer that assessment again, so they have ample time and opportunities to show that they can reach the promotion score. And I also want to kind of talk a little bit about, like, we have students that have disabilities that are on IEPs. We have English language learners as well. So if they're being measured at a 3rd grade level and they're already 2 or 1 grade levels behind, they're not necessarily gonna meet the state standards for that particular grade level. That's why they are on an individualized education plan. Or if they're a newcomer to the USA, you know, they're not going to be automatically proficient in 3rd grade because they are not speaking English as well. So this figure captures those students as well.
So how many of those students in the 3rd grade are on an IAP?
I would have to get you that information offline. Yep.
Yeah, I do have the performance level recommendation for Ohio State tests here in front of me. And again, I'm still confused. Is 49% based on 100? Is 100 the top? I mean, what is 49% of? Is that 49%? Yeah, again, do we still use 90 to 100 as A and 80 to 90 as B, and is that still?
It's not like that on the assessment, though. It's not figured that way. So it's hard to say the 49%, like you're thinking from a grading standpoint in a classroom. It's not the same. Because in this particular measure, you're taking 3 different components that student is having from K to 3. You're looking at promotion score, proficiency score. So you're looking at 3 different components that is calculated for that particular student. And so what Aisha has shared, even if they don't meet the score of 700, staff are still working with that student throughout the year to show that they can meet that particular standard. And so we're using an alternate assessment, not necessarily the state test. We're using NWEA MAP scores and showing that that student is making the growth that they need and meeting those standards. And so that student moves on and doesn't have to worry about that state assessment.
And I use this.
Additionally, those assessments that the state is using are designed to capture as broad of a skill range as possible. When we test in the classroom, we're testing over certain concepts that the children have learned and reviewed to make sure that they grasp those. With the state test, it's a really broad range so that the gifted kids who are a little ahead can also take that test and not just a bunch of them top out at 100%. They're looking at what is the average achievement that we're expecting of this grade. That's probably why those percentages for proficient are somewhere in the middle of the scale, in order to allow a lot of room at the top for those who may be advanced, and also a lot of room at the bottom for those who are not as advanced. It's a different use than your typical classroom test.
Don't you also have the issue where you have a kid that maybe on the state test just doesn't test well, but in the classroom, in the actual day-to-day work, they're doing very well?
And that's why we use the additional measure. So that's why we're using, like I said, that state test is one moment in time.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like you said, some kids don't test well, but because we have NWEA MAP, we can go back and actually have them take that particular measure that we do here 3 times a year so that we can see if there's growth and that student has made what they need, the expected need that they have on a particular standard. Say I can't decode, or I don't know phonemic awareness, and so as I'm taking my test and I'm showing that, then I'm able to move forward and not be held back in third grade.
And so this number here is solely on the state test?
This is only on early literacy. This is one of the 6 components
But I'm
that makes
saying
up our
these numbers
overall.
here, that where this 74% and that, is that?
So the 74% is the achievement piece of it. Like, that's just the Ohio State test. The promotion to 4th grade is a combination of the NWEA MAP test as well as the Ohio State raw scale test score, which is 700, and the promotion score of 50.
Now you mentioned 700, that's the low. What's the high?
That's actually the proficient level for
So
the state test.
What's
Each
high then?
test has its own ceiling, so there's not a magic number. Some tests goes well above 800. Some tests are, it just depends on the test, the growth conditional things that feed into that test, as well as the standard deviations. So it just depends.
So let me give you a hypothetical. I'm the teacher of a 3rd grader. I'm sitting across the parents. Let's say the parents, let's see, how old are you in 3rd grade? What, 7, 8 years old? So the parents might be 25, 30 years old maybe. How the heck do they understand this? And all they want to know, can my kid read? How do they understand? What do we, I mean, again, it used to be, I had reading, I got a C. I went home, my mom said, you got a C, you got to work harder. Is it the same kind of conversation we have?
Yes, so let me explain to you some of our processes. So what we do is when a kid comes in the fall, they take the NWEA MAP test. From there, we determine if they are on level, above, or below. From there, the kid gets on a reading improvement and monitoring plan if they are below. The parents are notified, there's some collaboration happening. A teacher picks a goal for that student, and they do progress monitoring. They do progress monitoring every 2 weeks. That information goes home quarterly in a document. They use various mechanisms to progress monitoring based on that student's skill deficits, and so that kind of is what's going on. So the parent knows the whole time throughout the year that your child is reading off track. In 3rd grade is a little bit more unique. We do the same thing, but they take the OST in the fall, the Ohio State test in the fall, and if they don't pass in the fall on that NWEA MAP test or not, we're giving parents a notification because they need to be in a know that their child may be at risk for not reading on grade level. From there, we track, we use progress monitoring, we set goals with those students, and we support them in the areas that they are showing deficit so that we can make sure that we are building them up before they take the test again in the spring. So that's kind of our process right now.
Now, I know this is an extra piece, but does the teacher have that conversation with the parent? This may help your child if you do this at home with them.
Absolutely.
Do you have those okay, that's
Yeah.
good. Because again, it shouldn't all be on the teacher. You know, they're only at school and they only have reading for so much per day.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then what about the conversation of the parent, because of maybe the emotional stigma, will put their kid into 4th grade when they really shouldn't? How much does the teacher have in kind of saying that might not be the best idea, or are they kind of not going down that road or that conversation at all?
So we have a retention protocol in a school district. So if there is suspectedness of, hey, this kid may be better off being retained, there's a checklist that we go through. We look at data, we have conversations with principals, teachers, they have conversations with parents, and then from there, a decision is made at the table, but the parent has to agree to it in order for them to happen. For that to happen, we can't like supersede that parent's decision.
Yeah, and I'm just really hitting this hard because the statistics are overwhelming. of kids that can't read, and at the other end, they're in jail.
Yep.
You know, as far as how important it is that we're not just pushing kids through the system and all of a sudden they graduate, they're 18 and we're done with them and they can't read or do math, you know. So that's why I'm kind of just hitting this hard. So as the parents know what their expectations are, somehow the teachers with all these numbers, that you know what the expectations are, and at the end of the day, that this kid can read.
And I think we're very lucky in this district, and that's one of the things that I hear from folks in other places, that our families are very involved and prioritize our students' education and send them to school ready to learn and work with our staff. I think that cooperation and collaboration is amazing in our district, and it's very much appreciated by our staff, I'm sure.
So the good news about our early literacy is the improving K-3 literacy measure was not calculated for our district because more than 90% of our kindergarten students were on track. So this part of the measure is not calculated when we have 90% of our students on track, which is amazing. That means our kindergarten teachers are rocking it out. So what are some of our next steps for action in terms of early literacy? We're going to monitor the reading improvement and monitoring plans to ensure goals align with student progress data. We're going to make sure we review our progress monitoring protocols regularly to maintain alignment and compliance with state requirements. And then looking ahead, the goal is for us to have 5 stars in early literacy. And so we're in the process of evaluating our core Tier 1 and Tier 2 interventions to ensure effectiveness and alignment with early literacy goals. So that's what we're doing in the area of K-3 literacy.
And so next we have our graduation component of the report card and our college and career workforce and military readiness. Our graduation, we received 5 stars in this area, and college and career workforce military readiness is the first time this has been on the report card, and this year we have received 3 stars. Looking at the graduation over the last 3 years, what you see depicted here on the slide is in the dark burgundy is our rating that we received for the graduation measure. You can see we have improved as we continue to go over the years. We are in the goal is the 4-year graduation rate. That is the numerator of the number of students in our school districts, and in the denominator, it is the cohort. It is the 9th grade students as they enter into the school and them progressing with the same group of students graduating in the 12th grade year. And so the 4-year graduation rate for this component is 60% of the score. And for the 5-year component, it is 40% of the score. And here on this slide, you can see what all takes place in the numerator and the denominator in order to achieve that calculation.
And then the other part of that component is the college, career, and workforce and military readiness, which we just call the CCWMR for short. So this is the calculation that the department has for post-secondary readiness component. Remember that the CCWMR component is lagging by 1 year, therefore calculated using students that already graduated in the 2024 cohort. The next slide will show how the students count in that numerator of that measure. It's mine. So the chart on the left explains ways that students can meet that readiness component. So receiving an ACT or SAT remediation free score, receiving an honors diploma, there's some at the top, but enlisting in the military, earning at least 12 industry recognized credential points, evidence of acceptance into an apprenticeship program, completing a pre-apprentice, completing an apprenticeship, achieving proficiency on 3 or more technical assessments in a single career pathway, and then also obtaining an Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal and having 250 hours of internship or approved work-based learning. So one thing to point out is kids only count once in that measure. So as long as they meet one, they count in the numerator, even if they meet 3 or 4 of those. So some action steps that we're taking to address graduation and CCWMR, well, we're going to continue graduation practices that we've been using that have been supporting students. Reviewing measures for readiness to see that students meet at least 1 by graduation. We're going to use some tools to track progress starting in 9th grade that provide students with regular feedback on where they're at. Evaluating our course alignment with ACT and remediation-free expectations. And then exploring work-based learning hours for non-CTE students. So we have our CTE students that earn the work-based learning, but we want to explore that with our students that don't enter a CTE program in high school.
And I really want to congratulate our staff in this measure, because this measure happens along the way. You got to think about kindergarten readiness. You got to think about your transition grades, your gifted calculation, and all of those things actually feed into this graduation measure. And then once they're in high school, making sure that 90+% of our students who start with us in 9th grade and looking at them finish in 12th grade. And so that's how we're really achieving that 5-star measure there. In regards to the CCWMR, we want to move toward 5 stars. We are currently at 3. We are looking at a data dashboard to assist us with tracking, because a lot of this right now is being done by hand by our counseling team. And so this is a lot of work to track all of those measures that you saw there for each kid, because every student has to have a graduation plan. All of our students have a clear path of success after graduation, making sure that we know exactly what our students are going to do, whether it be college readiness, for the workforce, or enlistment. And then starting in 9th grade with our students actually identifying exactly what that college readiness or that graduation path really looks like for them that they are going to pursue.
I have a question. Do we have numbers on the percentage of our graduating class who heads to each of those paths, the percentage that are headed to college or other training, to the workforce, to the military? Do we know what those proportions are?
Yes, but I don't have that tonight. I can get
Okay.
it for you later.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have some questions on that. On there, there was the SAT participation, and it showed 85.7%. Is that, I'm assuming that's juniors and seniors that take the ACT?
Yes,
Or
and
SAT?
yes, and the majority of our students take ACT. It was 1 year that we looked at SAT, so you see that 1 year of calculation in there. But most of our students take ACT, and what we want to look at is something to assist our students in preparing for that, as well as making sure that our staff understand exactly all of the components of the SAT, so we can do some stuff in our buildings to help students prepare, because right now we're looking at our rate on ACT is very stagnant. We're ranging between 19 and 21 on those SAT scores, so we want to continue to make that go up.
So the numbers on the college, career, workforce, military readiness, SAT participation of 87, 85.7, what, that's not last year?
No.
What year is it?
So that would be 2 years behind. So the kids at that measure we're on are actually sophomores in college right now, because remember, this is counted after
Remember
they
this-
graduate high school. So we have
Okay.
to follow that data.
Yeah,
But
so
don't
the
they
kids
ta-
we're talking about right now are actually, if they're in college, they're a sophomore or maybe juniors,
Can you
depending on.
find that page on there? Can you go back to that? So
So we're talking about.
it was on the, yeah, it was, I mean, it wasn't any of these. I don't know if
No.
you can, you don't have access, it's not, you don't have the internet on? Okay.
Oh.
So that SAT participation of 85.7%, you're saying that's from 2 years ago?
Yes, this measure is 2 years ago.
Okay.
Remember, we're looking at the 24-25 report card. Those would have been students' information from 23-24. So those students are actually sitting in a college class. They're not even with us anymore.
Well, we'll get back to that, whether they're sitting in a college class or not. But the ACT at the time was 23.5. So you're saying that was 2 years ago. So you're saying that's changing?
Yes.
Where we're getting
Where
more
if you
taking the
average,
ACT?
right, if you look at the average of the ACTs, we're averaging in the 21 range.
So a couple of years ago, to clear that up.
My numbers were the percentage of people taking it.
Yeah,
not-
to
not-
clear
Right,
that
I'm
up.
just looking at,
grade.
right, I'm looking at an average of what we're looking at from a district standpoint.
Because all right, we're going 2 years ago. What concerned me, and as far as if these kids are in school, is that the SAT remediation was 33.9, which means only 34 out of the, let's say if there was 100 students, only 34 of them got a grade high enough to enroll in Ohio schools. Am I
So
reading that right?
For 1 year, there was a shift at the high school, and all students, instead of taking the ACT, which is what we typically do, they all took the SAT as the test instead. So we typically, and we went back to, it was a 1 year thing. We typically give all of our 11th graders the ACT, that's the test that we pick. And for that 1 year, those kids took the SAT. So, and it was quite a few years ago now. So we really only look at the ACT because that's what we give. We didn't dive into the measures of the SAT and how to refine our practices with that because it was a 1 year that we did that, and then we went back to the ACT. So when we're having conversations with teachers, it's about the ACT remediation free score that we're focusing on.
And that remediation free score, what does that mean for college entrance requirements? Is that a minimum that colleges will accept? Is that, a little above minimum? Where?
So that's where
does
they
that
would
lie?
consider you could enter a college course your freshman year and be at pace with the students taking that college course that year and not need remediation.
Okay. It's not that they won't get into college.
Correct.
It's that there might be an area where they need a little extra coursework.
So it's that score that you can get, say, on the math. If you scored lower than that, you may be in a remediation type course that won't count towards your college, major.
To put it in perspective too, the kids that took the SAT that year, that 1 year that they took it and they were juniors, their freshman year COVID hit and their sophomore year was either hybrid or at home learning. So we put the data in context and it kind of gives us an idea of maybe where the numbers come from, so.
Yeah, because why this stuck out to me, and just as Pam had mentioned, as far as you could go and maybe take a remedial reading or remedial English class, that's all well and good, but you're paying for that. And I did a little digging, at Kent State, they're paying about $1,000 a credit. If it's a 3-credit class, that's $3,000 you're paying for a 0-level class that doesn't go towards graduation. So again, I don't think it would prohibit you from getting in, but it may cost you. So if you're taking 15 hours, you're really only 12 are counting towards graduation. Is it possible to get, I guess, you said this is 2 years ago? I mean, 1 year, current, one year?
We track ACT scores every year. I share that with teachers every year. That's another component that we do in the fall when I get their
I mean,
scores
is it
back.
possible to get something more current, just so I can kind of see, hey,
Yes, I
it is
have that.
working?
I
Okay,
can get that
great.
too.
Thank you.
Can I ask, so how are we tracking the students after they leave? Because that's a new measure, right? That we're supposed to be keeping track of them after they're gone. How are we doing that?
So we have to get data on the students, and so they're almost like self-reporting, like if they're going to go to college, if they're going to enroll, if they're going to go to the workforce. So it's a point of counselors trying to actually stay in communication with that student in order to track it, because you got students going across the United States, not just necessarily here. So it's more so them self-reporting. And there's a survey that they have to take at the end that says, this is where I'm going to go. And then a year later, we're supposed to reach out to them to see if that's really where they went or if that's what they're doing.
Are we able to find them? I would just think.
That is why we pray that their emails and all of those things say the same.
So the students are given the ACT their junior year. How many of them actually take it again on their own?
So we offer, students can take ACT anytime, so they can register and take on their own, and we're actually an ACT site. So a lot of students take it before they even take it their junior year, when we give it in the February, March, whenever the date is. They can take it again as many times as they want. They take it once that the state offers that is paid for here, and we do that in their junior year. But they get their scores, and then we get all the scores back, whether they take it with us on that day, or they've taken it previously in 9th grade or 10th grade, or they take it again in 12th grade.
So there's a chance that those students who didn't make that remediation-free score in their junior year continue to take coursework, finish out their last year of high school, obviously, hopefully learn more, and then can score higher if they choose to take the test again.
Yes.
I'm wondering if the fact that colleges are now having ACT tests be optional, if that's impacting their scores, because they know they don't have to score a certain amount to get in, not realizing that that's going to put them into a remedial class once they get there.
If you looked at state trends, you saw that happen around the COVID time when colleges did deem away from it. But now we have more colleges that are trying to move back into taking the college assessments.
And as the parent of 2 students that entered college in the last 2 years, in addition to the ACT, so even though neither one of my students needed to or didn't meet the requirement, they still had to take a math placement test that put them into an appropriate class. So there's always that option as well. Even if you don't have the remediation-free score, you can take that assessment that the university administers.
And one other thing that we have to remember that our students are also participating in, we do have a college credit program. So our students are taking college level courses while they're in high school. So they're earning those college credits in advance. And some of the things that they are taking are some of those, what we call entry-level English, math courses while they're still in high school. So we have a lot of students that are participating in that as well. So that's another thing that we're looking to explore to see if we can have more of our staff members actually be the professors for those courses so that our students can take them right in our building instead of having to go to Kent State and Akron U and Stark State.
And Felicia, are you talking about the dual enrollment?
I'm talking about college credit plus, yes.
Because I saw dual enrollment credit, and that's where they're in the building. And I saw, now again, that was 12.5%. Is that from 2 years ago?
Yeah, so
Is that increasing?
yes, so that's what I'm saying, we're just reporting on what has been shared with the public in regards to the report card so that people really understand exactly what they're looking at and then how we're moving forward in the process.
Is there any conversation on trying to expand that and keep the kids in the building?
Yeah, that's what I just said. We're trying to work with our teachers to get them certified. But what happens is the teacher has to have a master's degree in that particular content area in order to be a college credit plus faculty member.
All right, so good. So it is something, because potentially a freshman or sophomore could maybe sit in on those or.
College credit plus goes all the way down to 7th grade. A 7th grade student can take.
So
college
dual enrollment and college, that's the same thing? Because I know there's the kids that actually go to the college.
Yes.
And I know it's called something different now.
No, that's it.
And it's called, what did you say it was?
College credit plus, or
All right.
CCP. That's what people
CCP,
most
all right.
say.
Yeah, I know it was called something 10 years ago different, but okay, that's where they actually go. Now, the dual enrollment, I understand the kids stay in the building. Is that right? They're actually staying in the building.
It's the same thing. So
the same thing.
A student is dual enrolled if they're taking a couple classes at the high school and they're taking 2 classes at Kent State. They could physically go to Kent State's campus and take the class, or some of them are offered online. But either way, if they're enrolled in high school and at the university at the same time, it's dual enrollment and they're earning college credit plus credits.
Right. And then you mentioned that you're looking to expand that to where the kids can stay in the
Stay on
high
campus.
school.
Yeah,
the
stay in high school.
building.
Mhm.
Okay. I just had one general question, my last one. I was reading the National Assessment of Education Progress, the NAEP.
The NAEP test?
Yeah, and NAEP, they talk about grade inflation. What's your opinion or thought or comment on grade inflation?
I don't have one,
Do you think
because grades are subjective. Because what is an A in one person's classroom may not be an A in another person's classroom, so they're subjective.
Dr. Gould, this was an incredibly informative presentation.
We're not even done.
Oh,
We
there's
have more.
Oh, my. I was going to ask, with all of the data that's being presented, is this going to be like posted on the website for parents who want to
Yeah.
dig into those report card scores?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So we want to move into the special education profile. This is also another measure that the district receives, and this is a measure that really looks at our students with disabilities. And so I'm going to turn it over to Chrissy Pro.
Good evening. I promise I will try to be as brief as possible. I know we're been talking for a while. We get 2 ratings from the state every year. Our special education annual rating lags 2 years behind. So last school year, our 2024 rating based off our 2022-23 data set was meets requirements. Meets requirements is the highest rating possible, and it's based off the special education profile, like I said, from 2022-2023. So we also get our special education profile summary. That's the document I'm going to walk through, and that is based off of our 2023-2024 data. So when we get our 2025 rating, it's going to be based off the current profile. The percentage of students with disabilities in our district is about 15.59%, give or take on any given day. The state average is about 16.8. So for us, that equates to around 740 students with disabilities that receive special education services through the district. So our special education rating, so again, that's the one that lags 2 years and behind, is based mostly on compliance indicators. So this measures our compliance with the Individuals with Disabilities Education Improvement Act. So these are the different indicators that we look at. I'm not going to necessarily walk through all of these because it only tells you that we met requirements. But you can see all of the ones that are up there. I'm going to talk about a couple of them also appear on the profile. In addition to those compliance indicators, we do have 2 results indicators that appear on our special education rating, and that's our graduation rate and dropout rate for students with disabilities. So on the next screen is our special education profile. So again, this is something we receive every year. This is a more current measure, and it's really centered around 6 different questions. So some of these are going to be results indicators, and some of them are going to be compliance indicators. So I'm going to go to the first one and give you a cautionary tale as we get there. There is a lot of red, and I want to explain some of what's happening. So this is really focused around our preschool students. So it is, according to the state, so the preschool has moved from the State Department of Education to the Department of Children and Youth. And the Department of Children and Youth has let us know that the least restrictive environment, so the environment that's most appropriate for all students with disabilities that are of preschool age, is not in our preschool program. It's not at Indian Trail, it is in a community-based program. So some of the challenges we face with that are students with disabilities, if they attend our Little Bulldog preschool, they come to us at no cost. And we have our teachers are trained intervention specialists. They're all duly certified to also teach the general education curriculum as general education teachers. And so it is challenging to have a conversation or to have a family that wants to go to a community setting that may not have teachers that have that level of experience. And then the family also has to bear the cost of that program. The district does not pay for that. So you'll see that our data is backwards as far as students that are in a community setting and students that are in what they consider to be a more restrictive environment, because most of our students with disabilities, they attend our Little Bulldog preschool program. And a lot of our students have very complex needs that require a lot of services and supports. And we have really highly trained staff. And we have wonderful community partners. Some of our students do thrive in some of those settings, but some of the needs are a little more complex for a community program that's going to have more students than our preschool program does. So that's what those top 3 lines really represent, are those indicators regarding the setting where students go to preschool. So the next set of indicators, so indicators 7, so there's 7A through C. So this measure is based off of a conversation that our teachers have with parents regarding our students displaying age-appropriate behaviors. And again, this is only students with disabilities. So I can give you an example. So to what extent does the child show age-appropriate functioning across a variety of settings and situations based on relating with adults, relating with other children, and following rules? So it's a challenging indicator for some of our students because again, we're just measuring the progress of our students with disabilities. So it is always something we're looking to improve. We actually met that indicator for a couple of our students for a couple of years, and some years we don't. It really depends on the needs of the students. And then again, that's a family conversation. Sometimes we see progress and we see skills at preschool that we don't see at home, and vice versa. So if you don't see it in both settings, then we can't give credit to the student for displaying those. That being said, we're always looking to move the needle forward. I'm very proud of our Little Bulldog preschool program and the support that we provide to our families and to our students. And we do feel that they are ready for kindergarten when they come to us. The last indicator on there, the green one, is a compliance indicator. So when students transition at the age of 3 from Help Me Grow, which is considered, it's the early intervention system for students before they turn 3, they transition to us. There are timelines that we have to meet that are pretty strict, and there's lots of meetings that we have to have, and we are very proud to have met that indicator continuously over a number of years. So on the next slide, and again, I apologize, it's a big chart and then there's little writing. So the top 3 lines are our students are participating. So these are students that have cognitive disabilities, significant cognitive disabilities. They have an alternate assessment, and we get measured on the number of students that participate in that alternate assessment, and we have continually met those indicators. The next 3 lines are participation in, so we only get scored on grade 4, 8, and high school. So we did not meet the participation rate in 8th grade. Sometimes we have families that opt out of our state test. This is the regular state test because they don't feel like it's an accurate measure of what their student knows, and they don't. And that's a parent's choice. They also don't want to put their child through the stress of taking the assessment, and that, again, that's their choice, and we respect that. And so we did have some more students that had opted out at some of the higher grade levels, so that did affect our participation rate in reading and in math. The 4th one down, so this is our proficiency rate. I'm very proud. We've worked really, really hard. It is a moving target for us every year, so every year the percentage gets higher and higher and higher. But we've worked really hard over the last 8 years on making sure that our students with disabilities have access to grade level standards, have access to the general education setting with our teachers that are highly trained, and have high quality research-based interventions when they are struggling in different areas. So we are really proud to have met that language arts indicator for grade 4. We had a dip in grade 8 this year. We had met it the previous couple years, and we did have a little dip in high school, but I am also very proud of our high school team because this does not measure the competency score, which is different than the proficiency score. But we only had 3 students with disabilities not meet the competency score for graduation in English language arts at the high school last year, and that is incredible. And that goes to show the work and the dedication of the staff, the general education staff, and our intervention specialists in working with students with disabilities and being creative and finding wonderful ways to have kids learn. With math, we met the indicator in grade 4 and in high school, had, again, that dip in grade 8. And so we have some additional work to do with that grade 8 cohort as they move up into high school. And that's one of the things that we'll continue to focus on. On the next one, again, this is a compliance indicator. So it's the number of students that we have that are being educated in the general education setting. So again, that's a big focus for us. Students learn best when they're in the general education setting with their non-disabled peers. And so we have continually met those indicators over the last few years, and the results show that that's working. All right, the next one. So you'll notice that our graduation indicator says not met. And we just really had a discussion around that we got 5 stars in graduation. So let me explain to you a little bit about why this one is different. So there are a couple of calculations that go into this. So students with disabilities can stay after they meet graduation requirements if they need additional support and services in order to be ready for employment, enlistment, or further education. So if a student stays after that 4th year because the IEP team has that discussion and says, yeah, they need to stay, they need more services, that counts against us for graduation. That's a federal rule. We've been arguing about that for years. It's a right under the federal law that students with disabilities can stay, but when we make that decision, it counts against us for our graduation rate. The other thing that counts against us for our graduation rate is an IEP team can make a decision that a student cannot meet that competency score and still be eligible for graduation. So, and that's only on English Language Arts 2 and the Algebra 1 test. So again, when we talk about some of our students, especially some of our students with some more complex needs, an assessment on 1 day or 2 days is not a measure of what they know. And sometimes, and we always have kids take it once, we do intervention, they take it again. And then after that, if they keep taking it, at some point, it seems cruel and unusual punishment to have a student keep taking a test that they're not going to pass. So we have the opportunity to exempt them. If we do that, that also counts against our graduation rate. So we knew that this was something that was coming up. So I'm going to talk about some of the things that we have done in order to really address that and have students meet graduation requirements in other ways than demonstrating competency. All right, on the next slide, the only measure on here is any student that qualifies for special education services has an evaluation. We have very specific timelines we have to meet in regards to that evaluation. And again, our school psychologists, our speech paths are very, very diligent. And it's something that we monitor to make sure that everybody's on track, and proud to say that we continually meet that indicator as well. And then the next slide. So this is our children receiving equitable services and supports. So these are some of the things that we have to focus on as a district when we look at our students with disabilities, making sure that we don't have disproportionate representation, we're not inappropriately identifying students for education, that we're looking at their placement in the general education setting as much as possible, and that we're not disproportionately disciplining students. So we know that we're at risk on that last one, and we've already put some things into place and last year to address that because we had seen that that was coming. So just some of our next steps, if you want to hit the next slide. So we are looking at, can we add more peers to our Little Bulldog preschool classroom to get more towards that early childhood education setting where you have to have one more peer than kids with disabilities. There's some factors that you have to think about with that. We don't want to reduce the number of kids with disabilities we can take into our program, and we want to make sure that we have spaces available for those students. But that is something that we're looking at. We continue to assess and address the accessibility of grade level standards, gen ed curriculum, and research-based interventions. And again, I'm really proud of the work that we've done for our students with disabilities. So we did a lot of work last spring. So we have some new plans for meeting graduation requirements through earning those 12 points for the industry recognized credentials. So for example, you get 1 point for having a driver's license. There you can get a couple points for meeting a ServSafe test. So there's a whole lot of assessments that are available. So we're adding in some additional instruction and some additional layers so that we can have kids meet that 12-point credential and graduate and meet all those requirements. We know that sometimes we have some students that school is not the best place for them to learn. So we're also looking at increasing options and opportunities for students to meet graduation requirements by doing things that are more non-traditional. So we've done internships with, we've worked really hard with a local HVAC company, and we've placed a couple of students out there, and they've gone into full-time employment, and that has been something that's worked really well. So we're always reaching out. We have a lot of businesses in Stow that are wonderful to work with, and we want to continue to expand those opportunities, and so that we have successful plans for kids with and without disabilities that going to college is not their plan, but we need electricians, we need plumbers, we need HVAC, we need all those things, and they make a lot of money. And then we want to continue to refine practices. So I wrote EMIS on there. So EMIS is our data system that the state makes us submit all of our data through. So that's something that we're always looking at, as well as how are we reporting the data around our students. So again, I talked quickly, but I also know everybody's a little tired. All right.
Thank you, Chrissy.
Thank you.
So again, we'd like to just thank our staff for the hard work that they've done to get us to this point. with the rating that we've received on our report card. And when I say staff, this includes everyone. This is from bus drivers, kitchen workers, people in our classrooms, our support staff, from counselors, psychologists. This is an all hands on deck effort in order to get here. And also thank the families for entrusting us and educating their children. So that concludes our strategic plan update.
Any further questions? Okay. Thank you all for that extensive amount of information. It might be long, but it is much appreciated. Okay, our next agenda item. First of all, our treasurer recommendation on appropriations. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Okay, so we are amending our appropriations that we believe we are going to spend for the fiscal year 26. These numbers were set in the June meeting, the very last meeting of June, just a permanent improvement, a permanent appropriations of what we believe we're going to spend at that time. With House Bill 96 taking into effect, our appropriations have to match our current forecast. So we are modifying our appropriations to match our forecast. So that's why you see that up there today.
Can you let those of us who have not necessarily been memorizing House bills know what that one is?
Yeah, I'll go into more detail during the forecast.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Roll call, please.
East Jenkins,
Aye.
Merlady,
Aye.
Sheehan,
No.
Wind.
Aye. Okay, our next item is presentation of our forecast. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Galano?
Okay. Earlier than usual, which I will go into detail on why we are presenting it in October versus November. Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, House Bill 96, the current state budget provided no increase to foundation funding, only small amounts of outside formula. But this past spring, and one of the modifications was it took a 5-year forecast to a 4-year forecast, so to say. So you have your current fiscal year, which is fiscal year 26, and then they have a 3-year looking outwards. But we are still allowed to show 5 years just so we could have a better understanding of what's to come. So we're not blindsided. So more importantly, there are about 17 proposed laws that impact local property taxes or evaluations that could reduce local funding to all schools in Ohio. Sorry, I went ahead. Still talking about House Bill 96. So the current state budget changed, like I mentioned, and I believe it's safe to say that we all agree that property tax reform is necessary. But the core question is, what's the best way and the fairest way to do it? So some of the bills that are in place are looking at the 20 mil floor and looking at replacement levies, continuing levies, which really would affect our district alone and many other districts to be exact. So they're still trying to do what's best for the local property taxes, which is good, but they still haven't gone into the right way of doing it that benefits everybody as a whole. And later on, we'll see the local and state shares for funding school districts in the state of Ohio. Some of the purposes, just to engage the Board of Education and community in long-range planning. You know, these are not new to anybody. We do it twice a year. One of the other differences in House Bill 96, you know, we used to do the forecast in November and had to be done at the end of November. And then we did a true up in May. So we're still going to do the two, but this past summer, they changed it to August 31st. So they did give us some leeway for this fiscal year and gave us till the October 15th deadline. So they gave us some leeway because I don't think it was done by the time August 31st rolled around. So it's been a really quick turnover to get everything ready and presented to the board. And then we have to do our second one in February, due by February 28th. So they moved it back forward a month for the first one and several months for the second one. So before we get to the numbers, it's a financial forecast of like a painting of the future. You know, we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. We can only hope and project that what's going to happen is going to be for the best interests of everybody involved in school districts, the community, and the state. It's also viewed as a key management tool and should be updated periodically. My forecast, my monthly reports mimic my forecast just so everyone is getting more aware and familiar with what the forecast looks like and what it is actually trying to tell. It also encourages district management team to examine future years. I think every cabinet meeting that we're in, we're constantly talking about the forecast and the financial issues that Stowe is receiving at the state level and also at the federal level, because we're in rough waters with not just the state but also with federal as well. So the 5-year forecast is divided into 2 sections. You have your revenues and then your expenditures. The district revenues is mainly made up of the state local funding, and expenditures are mainly consist of the salary, which are the wages, the benefits, the purchase services, and the supplies and materials that go into educating students on a daily basis. Sorry. So once again, I touched on House 196 and some of the implications, and House 196 is not just local governments, it's the whole broad of the state of Ohio, the biennium budget. So if you want further information on the non-district information, please do your research on that. The one thing that is also concerning, which as a taxpayer, it's great for them, but as a school who relies on the piggyback or the homeowner's 2.5% reimbursement, they get that credit and then the state would reimburse us. Well, if this passes, the state would no longer reimburse that 2.5%, which is great for the homeowner, but it's not good for the municipalities who rely on that 2.5%. This could cost our district millions of dollars if this is approved. So like I said, it's great for the homeowners. It's just not great for those who rely on that 2.5%. So in July, the House overturned one of the governor's vetoes on a levy type. The Senate has yet to consider this veto or override the vetoes. The Senate can act all the way until December 31st of 2026. So we could be in limbo for another year and several months until they finally figure out what they want to do with House Bill 96. The Taxpayers Freedom and Trilogy Act, this was introduced in August. So you have House Bill 420, House Bill 421, and House Bill 422. These bills, if passed into law, could eliminate continuing levies, potentially set aside inside millage, and create more than 50% of approval margins for new levy approvals. So this is still in the works, and we'll keep you updated as soon as we have information. Like I said, everything's changing day to day, so it is difficult to keep track of everything that's going on, but we'll do our best to keep everybody involved and updated. Like I said, any changes which could be significant state funding and property taxes will need to be watched and evaluated carefully. The one thing I do want to mention is that the House and Means Committee, the House and Ways Committee are meeting tomorrow at 11:30, which unfortunately I'm not able to go to present my testimony to advocate for Stow-Munroe Falls. I did submit 2 written testimonies, which I will share on the website for everyone to read. So I'm always there to advocate for Stow-Munroe Falls to do what's best for the community and the students. Okay, so this one I think is just great to look at. So in fiscal year 24, they increase the inputs. So what, true dollars up at fiscal year 22, like what were the expenses at that time? They finally updated the input based in 24, but as you can see, they slowly start decreasing how much they're going to give that fair share to school districts. So as you can see in In fiscal year 99, the state was giving a percentage of 45.7%. And in fiscal year 25, we saw that decreasing and decreasing and decreasing to fiscal year 27, which is only a one fiscal year away. That's 32.2%. So it's great that they're trying to give the taxpayers a break, but where are we going to get our money if they keep decreasing both avenues of funding? You know, that's why it's like we're in limbo because we're scared, because if all this happens, what do we do next, and where does the money come from? So not only are we looking at the state level, but we're also looking at the federal level. We have $1.9 million roughly this year coming in from federal dollars through certain grants. You know, the Department of Education layoffs the other day, the Special Education Oversight and Civil Rights Enforcement were just laid off. And when we look at that, we look at what's all implemented, and Mrs. Pro just talked about, you know, special services and all that goes into that, and making sure that we are able to still give a safe and equitable education to everybody in need. If these were to go away, you're looking at roughly $1.9 million moving back into the general fund. So you have your state funding possibly being reduced, and now your federal dollars possibly being reduced. How do you think it's going to look when we have to put into an already deficit spending forecast and adding more money that we're just going to have to add back into it? So it's very challenging for Dr. Gould and I to look at this and look at, you know, looking at the future, being optimistic and hoping that everyone does what's right for property owners and school districts, that we could come to an agreement on how we make this work. Because if all of this were to pass, you know, we are looking at a lot of difficult and tough conversations to have. The implementation would not just be human capital, it would be like the arts, supplementals, everything from A to Z, inside and out, would be looked at on how we could start saving dollars, looking at tuition increases to preschool, kindergarten, and even looking at the state mandated, you know, we don't have to provide busing for high school students. We don't have to provide busing less than 2 miles, but that is something that we do because it's what's best for our students. So when we look at this, and some people might think, yes, it's the schools get too much money. There's more that goes involved to dollars. They're just not, they're teachers, they're certified staff, classified staff. Behind every dollar, there's somebody who's there to help educate and make that portion of a bulldog exist. So looking at our revenues and expenditures, we are set to deficit spend this year, roughly $600,000 deficit spend. That is as of currently. Like I said, Dr. Gould and I are always talking on ways we could reduce the expenditures. It's somewhat difficult to increase our revenues unless someone out there wants to donate millions and millions of dollars to Stow-Munroe Falls, which we would gladly accept and be very appreciative. You know, it's hard because it's where do we look at cutting and how?
I mean, we'll name anything after someone who gives us a large chunk of change, right?
I'm sure within confines. So, which deficit spending, like I've said before, isn't a bad thing. At some point, we're going to deficit spend. You know, I don't know any school districts be able to cut, and have cash positive balance. You know, we just passed a wonderful union contract, which gives our working hard employees 3% for the next 3 years. But you know, that takes a toll on the budget. One of the things that we do have coming up in May, which we do have a levy expiring, but with some of these House bills, you know, we possibly can't have emergency levies anymore. So what does that look like? We have 4 emergency levies. So this one comes to renewal first, which can't be renewed. So it could either be a fixed sum levy, which would still bring in the same amount of money, but that would be a new levy. You know, some residents get scared when you look at new levies, new money. You know, what's that look like for their bottom line? So it's just one of the other things that the politicians, I don't think, understand the outcomes of when they are doing what they are trying to do to help the residents. So the cash balance without the renewal, just so if the renewal were not to pass, we're looking at losing $2.5 million next year, and then the full amount the following year, because we collect half in the fiscal years, we would bleed through our cash much faster. So those dollars that have been voted on and approved help us every single day run the district and educate those children. So looking at our revenue, like I said, it is basically, thank you, local and state funded. We get 70% local sources and 29.5% from state sources. So you can see there's a huge discrepancy. We are heavily locally funded, which I don't think is fair. I think that the Constitution says children are owed a free and fair education, but yet it's at the local level who are funding that fair and free education, which isn't really free. I like this graph because it does show that, you could really see that the local level, which is in the red, and the state level, which is in the gold, it's not there. There's no really fair funding when it comes to public education. So how do we actually fix that root cause of what's fair? When we look at the expenditures, it's broken up into several pieces of the pie. The highest, which is our human capital, which equates to about 80% of the budget. So 80% of our budget is going to human capital, wages, benefits, and supplementals. Next, we have our purchase services. So anywhere from our utilities, which our utilities are really high, anywhere from $750,000 to over $1 million in utilities, from our compact districts to some subscriptions, which I will be happy to share that I do not have a Grammy subscription. So just making that clear. In materials and supplies, so supplies that help educate our students, from the pencils they use to the paper they use, to make sure that they are in a safe environment, in a learning environment, a ready environment for learning. So all of that is in our expenditures, which is roughly $76 million. Seems like it is a lot of money, big pill to swallow, but most of that is in salary and benefits. So our district financial story. Hospital 96 continues to fund the Fair School Plan. Current funding has us on the guarantee through 26. Future funding is uncertain for the fiscal year 28 through 30 as Fair School Funding Plan, not funded beyond 27. It's a biennium budget. I guess we received 29% from revenue in our state, 70 local. So really just looking at our district as Stow-Munroe falls and how we are different than every other district, because every district is not the same. We are similar in that we are always facing cash problems, inflation problems, and everything's increasing, which makes it harder for us to give the same opportunities to those kids than they did when things were much cheaper. But we still try to navigate the rough waters and make sure kids are getting what they need to be educated. So I know that's been a lot of information in the last 2 hours, so I'm happy to take some questions about the 5-year forecast.
I'm curious, I obviously have not memorized the May forecast, but I'm curious if you could give us some highlights on the things that have changed from May.
Yes, that is one thing that I was hoping to do, but I know we were about a swing in May, just from recollection. I believe we were going to be cash positive, roughly $600,000 some, and then this year we're about a negative $600,000. So about $1 million swing, $1.2 million swing. But that is also increased of utilities, some other purchase services that we need, compact district payments, and our foundation payments. Also, we saw the most increase in our purchase services, which we are taking a deeper look at and seeing why the huge increase.
Yeah, I have those numbers. Revenues and other financing sources, 6.010, Yeah, in May it was 692,962, and you were correct that in October of 25, it is a negative or minus 619,845. So yeah, very, very significant swing from May to October. You mentioned the purchase services, which the May number of fiscal year 90 or fiscal year 26 was 9,889,774. But then I look at the October, and this is 3.030 purchase services, is 11,274,387. That is a 1,384,623 increase. So why? What happened?
Yeah, so as I previously said, some of that is towards increase in costs like our utilities, and some of that is we no longer have in-house subs, so we are using a purchase service, Renhill, to open the pool for more substitutes. And so what we would spend in substitutes, which is roughly $700 some $1,000 in substitutes. You know, the bigger cause is we need people to come to work and do their jobs. So then we're not spending all this extra money in substitutes. And there's a shortage for substitutes. So when there's a shortage for substitutes, we have to then do class coverage, and class coverage is more expensive than substitutes. But that's just, excuse me, that's just a couple examples of why we've seen an increase in purchase services.
So you're saying utilities and purchase services accounted for almost a $1.4 million increase?
We spent around $700 some $1,000 in utilities last year, and we're probably trending towards over $1 million in utilities this year.
Why then? Okay, knowing that, but we're just talking from May to October, right? That these numbers?
Correct.
Or what? That's 5 months. So we went up utilities and services $1.4 million.
Not just in 5 months. It was just the projections for those areas.
Your projections, okay.
So when it comes to the purchase services increase, those substitutes would have been counted in a different category prior to using Renhill, and now they've moved categories.
Yeah, so those would be showing in the 100s and 200s, salaries and then benefits. And now we're seeing that in the 400s because Renhill pays them and then they invoice us and we pay that invoice out of a purchase service, which is the 400s.
Okay, so it's moving the expense from one place to another. Do we have a sense of the comparison of the costs from in-house to using Renhill?
We don't have good data yet because there's more than goes involved. We have to look at our substitute fill rates, and then we've received 3 invoices so far, so we don't have the greatest data yet
It's
to
still
really
early
put that in.
days.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
You said the revenues, that's where the substitute teacher money was used to come from?
Nope, these 100s, the salaries and benefits, 200s. So still looking at the expenditures, I believe it's the first line of expenditures for revenues or salaries.
In which fiscal year? I mean, I just have the report here, which was the fiscal years.
Yeah, so what we did was for this year, we took what we would have originally spent in substitutes projected of what we spent last year. We would move that from personal services, line 3.010, and move that projection into purchase services, line 3.030.
30. Okay. Let's just look at that. So you're saying 3.010. So we were in May at 42,727,268. Let's just see. In October, we're at 43,128,045. So it's not a big difference. So I'm still not understanding where this 1.4 million is now that we're having to pay as far as additional purchase services.
Yeah, and that's also why that Dr. Gould and I are taking a look at a deeper dive of what really, say, are causing these issues, but what is the need for the increase in these purchase services.
But you say you moved it from one to the other, and the one you said you moved it to, they didn't really change in the last, since the May one. But this other number did considerably.
Yeah, so you're not gonna find a exact comparable because we have new people coming in. That's where their supplementals are being paid out of. So there's more variables that play into that than just taking $500,000 from one, moving it to the other, and it being the exact amount from the May forecast.
I guess 1.4 is more than just a little variable, but anyways.
I never said it was a little variable, Mr. Sheehan.
All right, well, you said a variable. So, the one that, well, there's a lot of them, but the one that really concerns me is 10.010, which is the fund balance. If we look at If we look at 2026 and the fund balance, if I'm correct, this is a balance that we need to have to certify contracts, salary schedules, and other financial obligations. Is that right?
Partially, yes.
Okay. We are,
So
at
looking,
least on this, we're in a world of hurt.
so you're looking at,
No, you know, so, I'm sorry. I meant to talk about 7.020, as I was on the wrong line, which is cash balance. That was the one.
yep. So what you're looking at, those lines assume that levies don't pass, like the renewals don't pass. So if you scroll down or look at line 12.010, those are identifying if levies do pass. So the worst case scenario is line 10.010. Best case scenario is line 12.10. But you are correct. So in the event that the levies don't pass, we would be looking to the state for some
Yeah, because
some help.
we, on the 10.010, we need to be around 12, I think it is, isn't it around 12 to pay our contracts and salary schedules and so on. And then looks like at 525, you know, we were at 7.3 and 1025, we're at 26 million. I mean,
So
we're in a world of hurt here.
it's nice that you brought that up. So this is as of now. So like if those House bills pass and the federal dollars are gone, think about adding, so the one House bill, 186, could be roughly $9 million that could affect Stow-Munroe Falls. Take that negative number and add $9 million. And then take that $9 million plus that $2 million negative, add another $2 million. So all of the stuff that the state and federal levels are doing really impact Stow-Munroe Falls City School Districts, not just the employees, but really the students who are coming here for the best education possible.
Because, yeah, I mean, if these appropriations don't work out, we're unable to certify ourselves by 2028.
Yeah, it's not that the appropriations work out. It's more of the levy and funding sources we are getting from the state and local government. Depending on how those work out, will be influential in how our forecast will look.
So Patrick, in our May forecast, we were looking at the worst case scenario of losing that levy, kind of running out of money in 29. And currently, given the things that have changed in the months since, we're running out of money when?
So let's just say the levy that is expiring at the end of next calendar year, December 31st, 2026, we would be out of money in fiscal year 28.
Okay, so it pulls that point of zero balance a year closer. And then if if some of the other proposals pass and we're limited further in property tax revenue, but the state isn't replacing that with any other funding options, then we're looking at running out even sooner.
Yes. Yep. And at some point, with discussions either at the end of next fiscal year or early fiscal year 27 of having new money being passed to sustain the deficit or I don't want to say the deficits, but the changes in the local and federal funding on school districts. So.
And we're not allowed to renew that. It will look like new money regardless. Even if we do a fixed sum levy that would be the same amount as the one that's expiring,
Correct.
it will be on as a new levy.
Yep.
Okay.
And I've been working with some of my colleagues on a kind of levy analysis. So I'm planning to have that ready by November or December, but some of that, it might be null and void given what's happening with the state level. So yes. So that's where we're working hard at tightening the belt and wants versus needs. I get you want this, but we need to spend what we have and stay within our appropriations and our budgets.
Are we able to get like an A, B, or C? Because these seem like moving targets, and you're going to ask me in a minute here to approve this, and I would have a hard time approving this since these numbers are just like because of this and because of that, and this might happen and that might happen. Can we
can't
get an A,
control
B,
the
or C?
legislature.
Can we get an A, B, or C as far as we get all the money, and we get some of the money, we get none of it, and what that looks like as far as the buildings, teachers, keeping buildings, I mean, what your plan would be.
Although we briefly would talk about, options A, B, or C, we have not really gone into the depths of what that would look like. But let's say option C is the worst. Like I said, you're cutting everywhere, all programs, all class offerings, transportation where needed, field trips. So you're really coming to school and learning what you need to learn and then going back home. You're not seeing those clubs or those sports or those art programs really being involved because we just don't have the money for it. B would be like, hey, we could do a little bit more than the bare minimum. So like, hey, we're gonna bring back some sports or the arts, but maybe not as many because sports are very costly to run. A, everything goes as planned. We're gonna keep doing what we're doing, still watching our spending, cutting where we can, but making sure that those children have the options to do what they want to do throughout the entire school year.
Yeah, I didn't want you to have it right now, but I'm just saying something a little more detailed than that. But I mean, that would help because, yeah, I'm just looking at cash balance. We're looking at cash balance to go to year 20, let's see if I match them up right, 28. This is interesting here. All right, in May, you have cash balance at $2,084,000. And your forecasted for 28, is a minus 2,053,000. So yeah, so it's a pretty big change between or May and October, as far as cash balance.
Yeah, and all that has to play with the money we're receiving and the money that we're spending.
And it sounds like there are a lot of variables sitting at the State House right now. How can you make assumptions for the forecast? How is that being navigated?
Yeah, mentioned being optimistic, but also knowing the weathering storm, the gray cloud above us when it comes to funding for schools. Just being optimistic and hoping for the best, but having that in that plan B of like, hey, if this happens, we have to deploy this and roll it out quickly. So we have a principals meeting tomorrow, kind of giving them the heads up about like, hey, this is what's coming, and don't be alarmed if you get hit with plan B of like, gotta freeze some spending.
And we started looking at this last year. It's not like we've just started. And so we're into phase 2 of this with all of our departments to take a look at all of our budgets and to go back and revisit some of the things that we said in our last budget analysis. So we're going into phase 2 right now, because we know regardless, they're going to do something about property tax. We are very much sure about that. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but regardless of that, we still know that there are some things that we're going to have to cut.
So there's a lot of discussions and a lot
Yes.
of plannings that, or a lot of planning that has been ongoing for some
Yes.
time and will continue.
Yeah.
Any further questions? Roll call, please.
East Jenkins,
Aye.
Merlady,
Aye.
Sheehan,
No.
Wind,
Aye. Our next item is bonefish pay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Okay.
Mr. Delano?
So we currently use Bonefish for compliance matters. And the nice thing about Bonefish Pay, which is new, and it's something we're just trying out to see if it's something we would even like to do. We do have one accounts payable person, but with a lot of the public records requests coming in, it's bogging down my department's time to really do things efficiently and effectively. So one of the things that Bonefish Pay does, it takes on the risk, the liability, and the hassle. So one of the hassles is outstanding checks. You know, when those outstanding checks don't get cashed, we have to put them on our books, put them on our liabilities, and in 5 years, if it's on our books, we send it to the state for the unclaims fund, which was designated to the Brown Stadium. Nothing beneficial for schools. So they're really taking on that risk. So the nice thing about it is once we pay, let's say, Amazon for widgets, Bonefish Pay will take that amount out plus a $2 transaction fee, and they would then distribute it to Amazon. At that point, we would get throughout the year, at the end of the year, we would get a rebate, and projected that we would get money back for that stuff. So one of the things is just compliance and hassle-free of not really having to really follow that check and hound people like, hey, you have a check that needs to either be reissued. The other thing we're also doing is sending payments through ACH. So there's no longer that hassle of finding the check because if it gets lost in the mail, it gets shredded, or I forgot to deposit it. It's not easy to then rerun that check. So it's just something we're trying out. It's not that we're dedicated to this. We just have to prove it to try it out. And if it's something that me and my team like, it's something we would move forward with. But if we don't like it, we would not be moving forward with it. So it's just a trial and test run.
How long of a trial?
I think they roughly said several, 5 to 10 payments, because not everybody is going to be go through Bonefish. They already have their vendors set up, and they said they have a good 50 vendors that we currently use that use Bonefish Pay through them. So it would be a nice, easy test for us to do. But after 10, 20 payments, if we don't like it, we just stopped using them.
So does this stand to save your staff a significant amount of time?
There'd be, yes, some time saved, because we would no longer be, those who we are paying through Bonefish Pay, if we were paying them through a check, we would not be writing the check, forwarding the check, stuffing the check, sealing the check, putting it in the mailbox. So there is some type of time savings. I don't want to say it's a great deal of savings, but it's a savings where they could be working on other tasks.
Do you know of any school districts around here that are using it?
Bay Village uses it on the west side of Cleveland, and the treasurer really likes it. She said it helped open up some time for PD for the staff, and also for the accounts payable to work on other tasks associated with their job. But I could also get more districts who use it, Mr. Sheehan.
So, all right, so are we just approving the trial period?
Well, we're approving to use Bonefish Pay, and then because we had to work with Fifth Third Bank to enter an agreement with them, and then once that's approved, if we don't like it, I can inform you guys that we're not going to be using it. But normally we just select what payments we want to send to Bonefish, and then they take it from there.
So you said we already use this. Is this additional software or?
Yeah, so it's the same software. It's just more capabilities within the software. So we use it for compliance. So anytime we have a check run, we run it through their database and it checks for, it gives you alerts like, hey, you paid this vendor $50,000, just making sure over $50,000 for this fiscal year. And also it checks the vendors who you should not be paying because they're not active with the state of Ohio. So it gives you a notification before you pay them like, hey, you might want to look into this compliance factor that we have to provide auditing at the end of each year. So they do a lot of that bulk. They also provide Ohio State with our new hire report. Every 60 days, somebody hasn't gotten paid. They get paid in 60 days. They have to notify the state. So they've done a lot to help with our compliance and efficient reporting to the state.
Would 90 days be enough time to evaluate this?
Oh, that's more than enough.
Yeah, I don't want to have to change what you're asking to recommend, but I guess maybe a gentleman's agreement that at 90 days, we see this again, and if it's not working, we can opt out of it. Is that, we're on tape, so.
Yeah, we wouldn't need to opt out of it. I would just stop sending the payments to them. So once we upload once the accounts payable employee uploads the file, when I approve the file that, hey, it's good to pay, verified everything's good, when I'm in that file, I could say, okay, we're going to pay this company, this company, this company, 3 companies totaling $1,000 to Bonefish Pay. And once they get that, they would pull that $1,000 plus the $2 transaction fee out of our bank. So really, I have control whether we want to continue to use it or not continue to use it.
And I guess at that 90 days, you'd be able to evaluate, is it saving us, what's it costing us, and is there a cost benefit to it? All right.
Roll call, please.
East Jenkins,
Aye.
Merlitty,
Aye.
Sheehan,
Aye.
Wind.
Aye. Our next item of business is our first reading of Neola Policy Package B. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So as promised, I have provided for you Package B of the board policies. There are several policies here. There's 4 that are looking at being rescinded. There are several that need revisions, and there are several that have technical corrections. Are there any questions on any of those at this time?
I was wondering, it looks like in this package is rescinding several non-discrimination policies. Are those going away? Are those being folded into other policy?
There are some other policies from Neola that are coming forward at this time. Those we actually held on the anti-harassment ones. And so those are being rescinded, and if there are some in the future that we are currently looking at.
Other questions?
Nope.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, let's move on to our next item, Ohio checkbook resolution. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Galano, could you give us an explanation?
Yes, so we've been talking about the Ohio checkbook. This would give authorization for the treasurer to start using the Ohio checkbook, which Mr. Sheehan brought up several times throughout the couple months. So yeah, that's what this resolution will be doing.
Questions? Roll call.
East Jenkins,
Aye.
Merlitty,
Aye.
Sheehan,
Yes.
Wind,
No.
okay. Whoop. On to the next one is the resolution to rescind the prior resolution, which was set in September 2015, a resolution number 2015, authorizing participation in the Ohio checkbook as presented.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Yeah, so this was in the event that the first one were to pass, we're just going to rescind that one to make sure that this is the most accurate and up-to-date resolution for utilizing the Ohio checkbook.
Questions? Roll call, please.
Wait, I want to make a motion on this. Can I make a motion before this?
We're in the middle of.
Or
a
an-
motion.
I don't know if it's amendment.
We could talk about it.
Okay. Yeah, frankly, I'm looking at tabling this until after the election.
Can I ask why? We've already approved.
Well, we're using it, and now this is saying not to use it. Well, we may, based on the outcome of the election, we could be back to
Yeah.
approving it.
So going back to the one we just approved, that one's giving me authorization to start using it.
Right.
We have not been using it. So the one we just voted on beforehand, you just voted and passed that I'm to start using it.
Correct.
This one just rescinding the old one.
Oh, the one from 2015.
Correct.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay. So at this point, yes, we are using it. This is just rescinding the old resolution from the 220-15 is from the 2015 resolution.
That's correct.
So that we don't have two competing resolutions about
So
the
this would
same
be
thing.
brand spanking new.
Yes.
Okay. Then I reverse, resend, delete my motion.
Control Z.
Anything else? Roll call, please.
East Jenkins,
Aye.
Merlady,
Aye.
Sheehan,
Aye.
Wind.
Aye. Okay, moving on to our discussion items. The first one is our public comment sign-in sheet. I asked Mr. Galano to bring this back in front of us. We talked about it this summer, having a sign-in sheet that is not intended to discourage anyone from participating in public comments, but it does allow us to gather names and then also contact information for anyone who might want follow-up contact.
Yep. And a lot of it's really just housekeeping items, making sure if I could see the printing, spell people's names correctly, and also just a follow-up to it. And also just kind of reading our board policy 0169.1. Really, the presiding officer is to call up the people who want to speak. So we don't have to just kind of putting the thought back in your mind if this is something what we want to do. The sign-in sheet will be somewhere visible, whether it's with me, with the board policy, and it gives you the guidelines, just making sure like you understand. A lot of this stuff came from the policy, just like decorum, addressing the board, topics to one per speaker until other topics already been discussed about before talking again.
That print is tiny. Do you have a printed version or can you read it? Or enlarge it? There we go. That's better.
And then once the meeting starts, this could be up for 20 minutes, 10, 20 minutes. And then once the meeting starts, I would take it away. And that's when public participation would be over. And once we get to those topics, we would then give it to the presiding officer. The presiding officer would read up John Doe, you may come up to speak, yada, 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 and go through the list. So something that we could do, we don't have to do, but I know a lot of districts do this. So just putting it up there.
So as proposed here, this would kind of have a cutoff for folks to indicate that they want to make a public comment.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And just in our board policy as well.
Mhm.
So
But a citizen that wants to speak is not required to fill this out, correct?
I would have to go back through the policy again, but
I don't believe so.
And
We
this has-
can't force them to give us, he can say, he's the Easter Bunny
that,
on there.
that's correct.
So if they choose to, yes, but they're not required to if they want to speak.
And this has not gone through legal or anything. This is just pretty early, looking at the policy and trying to put it towards something that could be helpful for housekeeping and minute taking.
I know for myself, I would prefer not to have a cutoff, just because as the board talks, if we still have those two public comment sections, as things happen during the meeting, sometimes folks hear something that they want to ask a question about or share a reaction to. And again, I don't want to discourage folks from getting up and talking at the mic if they'd like to. So is there a way to manage sign in where we're not cutting that off?
Yeah, we could also, if they come up to speak, they could just fill out their name and what they talked about afterwards, just so I have a clear indication of who they are. Because as much as I try to spell the name or AI tries to dictate the name, mistakes happen. So,
Any other thoughts?
I think it's helpful too, in case people bring up an issue and they do want follow-up. I would like to see you maybe put name and then optional contact information or something like that. And that way, if they want somebody to call them back to answer their question or to explore the issue further, that's their option to put that information in there that somebody can follow up the next day.
yep. And we also have other avenues to do that exact option.
No further comments? Okay. Hopefully we can proceed with getting this cleared with legal and move forward. Okay, next topic, HCR 22. Mr. Sheehan, this was your ask. And I'm not sure what the discussion is, but you have the floor.
No, I'm just wanting to share this with the board and also with the folks listening in and the folks here. I'm really excited about this. Right now, this is HCR 22. It's been adopted by the House, so it's moving pretty quickly. It was introduced by one of our local representative, Bill Romer. What it is it's to encourage students in grades 1 through 12 to read the U.S. Declaration of Independence in the classroom during the 25-26 school year in celebration of its 250th anniversary. So this is moving very quickly, and I was pretty excited about that. Because of my excitement, I have about 3,000 of these. So at the point that it's either approved and we have to do it, or maybe it's not and we do it anyways, I'm going to want to speak with, the history teachers or whoever would be involved with this, because I want to make sure every student, if I can, in the district has their own copy of the Constitution of the United States. Another bill came up today, and this will just be really quick. I just want to bring it up, and I appreciate being able to add this. This is House Bill 486, and it's currently in the House committee, so it's pretty new. The co-sponsors, Gary Glick, who happens to be a pastor, and Michael Davila. This one I was very excited about because this will, it's going to amend some sections that are already in there. I'm not going to read them. What this is, to enact the Charlie Kirk American Heritage Act to permit teachers in public schools and state institutions of higher education to provide instruction on the influence of Christianity on history and culture. So I just heard about this one today. I was very excited about it, so I'm going to be watching this one very closely.
Thank you for the update.
And I just would like to share with Mr. Sheehan that our students already participate in the Declaration of Independence, grades 8 through 12.
They each have one of these? Because I'm going to make sure, find out, because I can get them all one of these.
I will find out, but.
And how many?
But they already participate in doing
Okay.
something with the declaration.
Yeah, I was assuming there was already some of that built into our curriculum. Thank you. Okay, our next item is executive session for under 121.22G1 to consider the employment of a public employee or official. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
East Jenkins,
Aye.
Merlady,
Aye.
Sheehan,
Aye.
Wind.
Aye. So we are in executive session at 8:50. There will be no formal action other than adjournment afterward.